Hello everyone, Jim from Ohio here, and winter is in full force here in Ohio. So we've broken out the sweaters and we're going to be making a pot of soup today. Now, if you're like most other people that had a holiday bird, meaning a large turkey, you probably had a lot of parts left over after it was all carved up and put on the platter and served to everyone. So what I'm going to do today is show you what I like to do with all of the leftover parts of that holiday bird. So I started by taking the entire carcass, everything that didn't go onto the platter when we served that bird. I gathered it all up and I threw it into a couple of containers and Ziploc bags, and I stuck it in the refrigerator until I had time to process it. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to go ahead and process it, and we're going to make some of the tastiest turkey noodle soup that you've ever had. So I started out by just taking all of those parts, bones, the entire carcass. You want the wing bones, the leg bones, the chest cavity. You want all of that stuff. We're going to first process that, get all of the good flavor and marrow out of that, and we're going to make us a good bone broth along with just a regular turkey broth that we're going to use as a base for this soup that we're going to make. So at this point, it's really simple. We've just got everything in here, and then we filled the pot up, and I use the largest pot that I have. This is a stock pot. I do have a lid that fits on here perfect because we're going to want to keep all of the flavors in there. But first of all, what we're going to do is you want to fill it up with water so that all of the parts are submerged. It's okay if a little bit of it sticks out like it's doing here. I've got, it kind of looks like part of a leg bone or thigh bone or something. But you just want everything to be covered up and fill your pot up to the brim with water. Now at this point, I do have the burner on medium high, and we're going to bring it up to a boil. Once it gets up to a full rolling boil, we're going to go ahead and turn the temperature down so that it simmers, and we're going to let it just simmer away for a good part of the day. We want at least 2 hours. If you go 3 to 4 hours, that's that much better. It's just going to get all of that goodness, all of that nutrition, that stuff that helps us stay healthy and well throughout the winter is found inside the bones of the turkey. And we're going to boil as much as we can to get all of that out of there. Now this is also going to loosen up all of those small meat particles that are in all the nooks and crannies that you weren't able to dig it out of when you carved up the turkey. So at this point, all we have in the pot is just turkey, carcass, and water. Now I am gonna go ahead and add some minced garlic. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon and a half of minced garlic once this reaches a full boil. But that's all that I'm going to put in the pot at this time. Now later on, once we have our base, we're going to use that base and we're going to add all of the other things that is going to go into this turkey noodle soup. Okay, now that our stock is boiling, we're going to go ahead and just add about a tablespoon and a half of garlic to the mixture and just stir it in a little bit. That's going to just add that good flavor throughout our stock as it cooks down. And then it's just a matter of reducing the heat so that we keep just a low that's hard to say, a low simmer going, as I mentioned, for about 2 to 4 hours. The longer the better. If you're in a hurry, the 2 hours will work. Otherwise, the 4 hours, like I said, is going to get all that goodness out of those turkey bones. And we will want to keep an eye on this because as it gets hot, just like any other thing that you've got this much liquid in, if it boils too much, it is going to overflow and mess up your stovetop. So be sure that you're staying close enough that you can keep a good eye and an ear, and just keep that simmer low and just barely rolling inside there. All right, while you're waiting for the stock to go ahead and boil down, it is a good time to go ahead and prepare all of the other ingredients for this soup. We've got here 2 chopped carrots, 1 large chopped onion, 2 sticks of celery, and then the spices. This is what really sets the flavor of this off. I've got 1 teaspoon of salt. Now I'm using the pink Himalayan salt. I don't think it really matters, but that's just what we're using. I understand it has better, more minerals in it that are good for your body. Anyway, there's also a teaspoon of ground black pepper, half a teaspoon of paprika, and you can use any kind you want, either the regular paprika or the smoked paprika is good. And then we've got 1 teaspoon of dried thyme, 1 teaspoon of dried parsley, 1 teaspoon of dried oregano, and 1 teaspoon of rosemary. Now, the fresher your spices, obviously, the better. Now, what we're going to do, and this is going to sound kind of odd, but trust me on this, we're going to take all of these ingredients, we're going to put it into the crock pot along with 2 cups of water for now. And what that's going to do is it's just going to soak the vegetables, soften them up a little bit, and flavor them up with the spices. And that's just going to sit in the crock pot. Now, the crock pot is not going to be turned on at this point. It's just going to be sitting, waiting for us to add the stock later on. Once we add the stock, then it's a matter of just turning the crock pot on and cooking the ingredients. But for now, we're just going to extract all of the flavors that we can with these vegetables and replace it with the spices that are here. Okay, so now we have about 4 hours of boiling time. And the next step, we're going to go ahead and turn this off. And then over here in the sink, I've got a colander ready to go. We're going to go ahead and pour that mixture through here to separate the broth from all of the solid pieces. And then we're going to let the solid pieces cool down. And it's going to be a tedious process, but we're going to have to pick through all of those pieces and separate what we don't want from the meat. And any meat we're going to try to reserve, and we're going to put that into our crock pot along with the vegetables. And we'll probably use about 3 cups of the broth. We'll add a little bit more water to that. And then we will add some additional pieces of some of our leftover turkey. And then we'll go ahead and turn on the crock pot and let it cook for another little while to make our soup. We don't want to add the noodles till probably the last hour of cooking. But I'm going to go ahead and turn this off and start seeing what I can do to get this stuff all processed here. That's the good stuff. Okay, so we're going to use 3 cups of our broth and add that over to the crock pot. Well, we'll go ahead and go 4 cups. We've got this stuff. We may as well use it. And so the rest of this stuff, we're going to allow it to cool. And once it cools down, we can put this into Ziploc bags and put it into the freezer, and it's available for when we want to make this soup again in the future. We've got the stuff, we may as well use it. And then I've got a bag of some of our leftover turkey. And this is mostly white meat in the bag, but I've got probably about, I'm going to say 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of turkey. We're going to go ahead and add that to our pot. And go ahead and I'm going to put this on high, and we're going to let it cook for a couple hours in the crock pot. And then for all of this stuff that's over here, that is our solids. As I mentioned, we're going to pick through that. We're going to pick out all the bones and all the gristle and all the skin. And there are going to be some leftover parts of the turkey that are meaty. And so rather than wasting that, we're going to go ahead and throw that into the crock pot too. We'll go ahead and get that done, and then we'll come back in a couple hours after everything's ready to go, and the last step will be to add those noodles back in when we've got about 1 hour of cooking time left. So we'll come back in a little bit. So I've picked through all of the bones and other material we don't want to use, and really ended up with quite a bit of leftover turkey, and this is all meat. And I put some of it into the pot already, along with the stuff I had in the Ziploc bag. And there's really a lot more meat that I want to have in this pot. So what I'm going to do is, along with the broth over here, the extra broth that we're going to freeze, we've got enough of this for at least 1 more batch of soup. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back in a Ziploc bag and throw it in the freezer along with that broth over there. And so we've got enough for another big batch of soup later on down the road. So we'll go ahead and start letting this simmer. And the meat is already cooked, but we do have to cook those veggies that have been soaking in there. And then we'll give it a couple hours, and then we'll taste test it. If it's a little bit weak on the broth side, we may have to add in some bouillon. But if we'll wait, and we don't want to prejudge it and do that at this point and have it possibly too salty or something. So we're just going to let it cook and just taste test it throughout the cooking process, and get to that point where we throw our noodles in.